Chapter 131. The first words out of my mouth more or less sum up my thoughts on the matter. "That's stupid," I grunt. Altrix gives me an irritated glare. "We assure you, it is the truth," she insists. "For 6 years, you were our son. You most likely died, then possessed your current body." I know I forgot a lot, but I find it difficult to believe I'd forget having a dick, I grumble. Altrix sighs. "Do you really find the idea so detestable, compared to that of being a woman?" she asks. "Well, no, I don't really give a shit about that," I dismiss. "Man or woman, both seem equally awful. I don't know. What you're talking about is crazy. You're saying that when I die, I just don't die? That I'm literally immortal unless you destroy my soul with animancy? That I can pretty much take any body I want and make it mine? That I could have fucking shed this shitty, awful life this whole damn time, and I just didn't know about it?" I grind my teeth together, getting increasingly furious the more I think about this. If this is really true, I've been such a goddamn idiot. None of the dangers I've faced even fucking mattered. I could have been scot-free whenever I wanted. "Well, probably not," Altrix answers. "You did, if you recall, lose all of your memories. We're far from an expert about Ligdom, Vita, but we've been around ours since our inception. It is not a task he undertakes casually. He was pretty casual when he slit his throat to avoid working up some stairs," I counter. "It is ours way to always downplay the danger he perceives himself to being," Altrix explains. "We suspect his decision was far more tactical than he implied. We know that ours prepared his bodies for possession long in advance, heavily modifying both his own soul and that of his target to minimize the damage transferring caused him. But there is damage. Ours has achieved functional immortality through his status as a lich, but he suffers a cost whenever he uses that power. It's like Nora," Vitamin says suddenly, idly kicking her legs from her perch on my shoulders. "Souls with nothing to feed them have to consume themselves for energy. Mom, what if your memory loss is the same as when a Nora spends too long outside a host? What if you lost who you were the same way we could, before you killed us? All the other souls in my body aren't feeding on me, and they're fine," I argue. "They are unconscious and inert," Vitamin says. "They are probably not using any energy." I think about that. Still doesn't seem to add up. "You aren't using your body for fuel as a revenant," I point out. "And yeah, you degrade, but it's way slower than a Nora does. That's because of my soul shards, isn't it? I think I remember someone saying something about how much more efficient they are, compared to Nora. If they came from my soul, shouldn't I be basically fine for extended periods of time as just a soul?" "You were not strong, as a child," Altrix says. "You did not have the powers you have now, so that could certainly be part of it. But another theory would be that the process of possessing a different body is inherently exhausting, taking large amounts of energy. You might avoid losing memories now that you have power to spare, but all we know for certain is that, as a child, it nearly destroyed you. So if that theory is right, I might be a lot weaker after a swap," I conclude. Damn. So much for Operation Ditch This Skin. As gross as this body is, I suppose it has also become quite strong. A new body wouldn't have extra eyes and gross faux tentacles, but it also wouldn't have the enhanced muscles and bones that let me survive an explosion to the face. It'd be worse than when I was breaking my own legs for moving too fast all the time. "These are all guesses," Altrix says. "I think it's undeniable that you are a lich, a being that can inhabit a new, living body whenever their body is killed. But that would make you and ours the only liches I know of. And the two of you might not even work the same way. Ours prepared his bodies in advance, but there's no way you or he prepared this orphan girl form for you." I scowl. "Orphan girl form? Bitch, it's not a form, I just am an orphan girl. Maybe I'm also some kind of weird nascent demigoddess, but that's more what than who. Vita isn't even a boy's name," I grumble. Altrix raises an eyebrow. "Sano, Excorio, and Enteritus don't really sound like girls' names. Ours never gave much thought to things like that. This guy sounds like the absolute worst father figure," I grumble. We would not describe him as particularly competent in that area, no, Ultrix smirks. Though he did give you Roscoe for your birthday, once. That's about the only interaction the two of you had, outside of him dropping by to examine the progression of your soul. I pause, my mind stalling as a dozen questions assaulted at once. I manage to voice one of them. When's my birthday? Sympathy, sadness, and regret pour from the woman in front of me, all coated in that motherly love that makes me so suspicious of her. It's hard not to recoil at unrequited longing. Second Greenrick, she answers. Or, at least that's when your original body was born. Your birth could arguably be the moment you filled the hollow soul ours made for you, if that is what you identify with, but we always celebrated on Second Greenrick. You'd have to ask ours when you were first brought here, and, well, you'd know better than we would about when that part of you from elsewhere was born. You think I'm from another world? I prompt. Aren't you? Well, my mana certainly isn't from here, I muse. It feels like it's from somewhere impossibly far away. I can go there, mentally. Be that part of myself, play around a bit. But there's nothing there. It's just me, and walls of death surrounding me on all sides. I can move around a little, test their boundaries, but it's pretty pointless. There are no answers there, and certainly no memories. It just is. A static equilibrium. I spent plenty of my time in prison confirming that, too. My mono self is so beautiful, so pure, raw potential given form. It's relaxing just to move myself, dancing within the confines of that otherworldly prison, surrounded by multicolored walls of pointless annihilation. Green, black, purple. I could try to tunnel through them, throwing myself against them to burn them away, but why bother? Nothing else exists in that realm. I would just be making myself smaller for no purpose, no gain. I am an ocean among nothing but oceans, raw might with nothing to use it on. Well, nothing on that side of the tunnel, anyway. Ultrix gives me an odd look as my explanation ends, her emotions as complicated as ever. Nostalgia, concern, regret, love, curiosity, ponderousness. There's quite a lot going on inside her head at any given time. You never spoke about any of this as a child, she says simply. Well, I never even knew I was using a different kind of mana from everyone else until Penelope and Theodora figured it out, I shrug. Theodora preens silently, though she's still working with Melissa. I can hardly imagine I had any idea what my deal was when I was 5. I suppose. You were exceptionally intelligent for a child, however. At least when you bothered to be. You were also, well, rather lazy. It was often a hassle to get you to do anything. I flinch, though I manage to keep my body from reacting. That kind of hits close to home. Lazy. I've always hated that part of myself, my tendency to just sit around and wait for things to happen to me rather than deciding on something and working towards it on my own. I wonder. Is that part of my nature, too? I've always blamed it on my shitty life, on not physically having the opportunity or energy to do anything in the first place. But if I really used to be, what, a spoiled noble boy? And I was still like that? That means it's all me. I can see it, too. I'm most content when I'm sitting around, be that because I'm cuddling someone or diving into my soul or eating or just doing nothing at all. I don't like to plan, to fight, to work, to learn. To do anything, really. I solve problems put in front of me, but I need help from others to push me to take it further. I've known this for a long time and struggled to deal with it, because knowing it's bad doesn't change the truth of it. How do I put more effort into the problem of not wanting to put in effort? What have I been cheating myself out of? Maybe I could have even broken myself out of jail sooner if I spent less time ignoring the world and more time thinking about it. Who knows? What comes to mind now, however, is the idea that if I'm the same sort of being as the Mistwitcher, what if this is what it's doing, as well? What if I'm a lazy sack of shit for the same reason it just sits around and eats, never using its power for anything but maintaining its little rotating buffet line? Does the Mist Watcher have hopes and dreams and goals, or is it just a vehicle for sedentary self-satisfaction? And even more chillingly, is that what I'll become when I'm strong enough to not be in danger anymore? Is that all I am, at the core of my soul? Vita? Ultrix asks in that hauntingly motherly tone of hers. Are you alright? Yeah, I lie. I'm just coming to a number of terrifying revelations, is all. I suppose learning that you died and possessed the body of another person would do that, Ultrix answers, smiling slightly. Sure, that too. She blinks. So back to the lich thing, I say, expertly changing the subject. The basic summary is that we think I can shrug off death. I'll be a little weaker, possibly a lot weaker, from the process of moving around without a body and subsequently claiming a new one. The longer I go without claiming a new body, the more damage I'll take. Go too long without a body, and Misty probably eats me. That all sound accurate so far. Makes sense to me. Vitamin chirps. Based on my limited understanding, yes, Ultrix agrees. Okay, I say. So here's kind of a sticking point for me. How the fuck do I actually do the possession? Silence answers me. I just feel like that's a major problem. Here, I continue. I don't remember doing that. Hell, I don't even know how to move around without a body. Currently, the movements of my soul are entirely based on my soul's link to my body. Ours shot off like an arrow when he died, but he prepares his bodies in advance, apparently. I don't. I wouldn't even know how. What if I die and I just end up floating in place like any other soul? The more I think about it, the more worried I am. How does a soul move without its body? Do I swim through the air? My soul doesn't interact with air. I might be able to grab onto other souls and pull myself around that way, but only if there are any nearby. And pushing on a soul too hard tends to kill it, which is why I can't just spider walk my way around using souls as grapple points for my tentacles. They are fragile. Maybe I could get a bit of momentum that way, but it wouldn't be a lot. I'm almost certainly stuck possessing things that are within tentacle range or just slightly outside it when I die, I conclude. That would even explain why I'm an orphan girl in the first place. If I had the option of flying around and possessing anyone in the city, wouldn't I have done that? Instead, I'm this. One of the earliest things I remember is looting a rich kid's body in order to grab Roscoe, so maybe this body is just the only one that got close enough for me to nab. Which means, I was that rich kid I stole Roscoe from. Retrieved Roscoe from? Shit, that's freaky. I died in a random mugging, I realize. My family was just stupid enough to walk around in fancy clothes in my part of town. That's kind of pathetic. Sorry, Vita, Ultrix says quietly, unable to meet my eyes. We did the best we could. I stare at her, trying to figure out what to say. In prison, I never had to worry about any social interaction beyond aggressive ones. I hated everyone there. They were all so firm in their bullshit beliefs, so fucking holier than thou that I couldn't help but despise their guts. Jalisa wasn't the only nice one, if I'm being honest. I killed kind people during my escape. But unlike Jalisa, they were also people who would never, ever listen. People so unshakably firm in their beliefs that nothing I said was ever taken seriously. Not unless I made them hurt. I resent Ultrix, a little. I was perfectly content to not know my past, to not know who I was. I'd come to terms with that years ago. But is that just more of me being lazy, being happy to do and think about nothing? She's right that I've just been treating her like a tool, abusing the fact that she loves me. I don't know how else to interact with her. I had a family already, one that I found and fucking earned my place in. I don't want whatever one ours made for me, handed on a silver platter. But that's not fair. I shouldn't treat her like a revenant. For that matter, I should treat my revenants better than I actually do. I should work, I should improve. Yet I can feel myself tempted to just sit down and tune everything out again, safe in my ocean. Apology accepted, I tell Ultrix. And? Sorry. For real this time. You're right, I've been an asshole. If that keeps happening, keep calling me out on it. Please. You have my permission. She scoffs. We don't need permission for that. Thank you for the apology, though. We missed you very much, Vida. Well, that's the other thing, I sigh, picking up on the lack of an apology except it being intentional. Oh, well. I know you. Think of yourself as my mom. And I'm willing to accept you maybe you're my real mom, in whatever capacity that means for someone like me. But I don't think of you that way. I probably never will. She nods, and I feel her heart breaking. But that doesn't mean we have to. I don't know. Be strangers, I guess, I continue quickly. I know you love me, so I'll make an effort to be less of a jerk around you. We can hang out, and stuff. I'll make new memories with you, how's that? Ah, there we go. The warmth in her soul flows back as she smiles wide at me, showing her strangely shaped teeth. Vida, Ultrix says. May we hug you? I tense up a little. I don't know her that well. She's not a revenant. But she loves me. Love is safe. Yeah, I agree. Okay. I set Vitamin down as Ultrix approaches me, pulling me into a firm hug. I feel a desperately needed catharsis start to swirl through her soul, washing her stress and fury, and sadness and guilt into something more melancholy, more manageable. I take a deep breath, basking in that feeling for strength, and reach up to hug her back. I forgot what it was like, I manage to say. To be around people that care about me. The hug grows tighter, and I feel a different part of Ultrix's soul slot into control. They will never take you again, Vida, Ultrix promises. We will kill them all if they try. Thanks, Ultrix, I say quietly, and I'm happy to find that I mean it. Excorio, she corrects. Before, you were talking with Sano. Our third is Nyx. At least try your best to remember that, or we will call you an asshole again. I blink. Okay. Noted. I'm not the best with names but I'll make an effort. She chuckles, finally letting go of me. Good, Excorio concludes. Hey, I hate to interrupt this touching family reunion, Theodora says suddenly, flashing me an awkward smile. But, well, we have our first sample. She holds up a glass jar, inside of which is a small, golden yellow glob of slime, alive and wriggling. Behind her, Melissa has her hands on her mouth, as if in shock. Did I just have a baby? She whispers. I'm definitely not supposed to do that until I'm older. It's more like a clone, Theodora unsuccessfully reassures her. Anyway, Vida, it looks pretty mindless. Can you confirm? I give its tiny soul a once-over, and nod. Yeah, I don't even feel any emotions from that. It's dumber than a bug. Perfect. Theodora exclaims happily. So, here's the tricky bit. We want to make sure we can replicably integrate a soul into this thing in the same way as Melissa. But if we don't use a large enough soul, it'll just be digested. I nod at Ultrix. Excorio, and then step past her to approach Theodora and the baby Ozoid. Theodora is basically asking permission to use one of the souls inside my body as a test subject. Which I have more than a few mixed feelings about. I have an obligation to these souls, after all. If something happens to them, it's my fault. We can't really use animal souls for this, though. There's no way to check, say, a squirrel soul for mental degradation, considering that I can't speak squirrel. And that's assuming the squirrel soul doesn't just get eaten. We kind of need something of human-level intelligence. Out of everything inside me, though, I think I have a good chunk of souls that fit the bill. Vitamin, I say, looking down at her. How do you feel about me using your sibling to test this? She seems shocked. You don't mean Angelian, do you? She asks. You want to risk her on a test? No, I say quickly. I mean your biological siblings. The Nora's souls from Lisha village. They were some of the first souls I saved, remember? Oh, she breathes. Oh, right, yeah. I kinda forgot that. Why them, Mom? Because on one hand, I want to bring them back, I say. On the other hand, if this goes wrong, well, every one of them decided to torture a person in order to live. If someone is going to suffer while we perfect this process, they're the candidates that deserve it the most. Vitamin scratches the back of her head. Maybe you should talk to Margaret about this? She hedges. It's not like I knew any of them. Only you and my two not dads. Just do it, Theodora grumbles. Or will Margaret disagree and change what you think is best at all? I smile sadly. Nah, it probably won't. Here we go then, I say. Random Nora I done single quotino number 1, let's bring you back. I extract the soul in question from my body, placing it carefully inside the slime. Best I can remember, I never even interacted with this Nora before. They were just one of the couple dozen possessing a random villager. The soul is almost bigger than the tiny glop of ooze in a jar, but if anything that should just make it less likely to be damaged as the minuscule oozoid soul tries and magnificently fails at digesting the Nora's soul, ending up fused and subverted. Slowly but surely, the consciousness of the Nora churns online, going through that familiar bewildering process of waking up and realizing one's own existence. Welcome back to life. Vitamin says happily, and I immediately notice something wrong. They didn't understand that, I report. They are panicking. They are awake and thinking normally, as far as I can tell, but something's wrong. Well, they are adjusting to new senses, probably, Theodora says. Unless you think it's something more serious than that? I don't remember it well, but I was really scared when I first became like this, Melissa says. I'm blind, you know. I can hear things well, and I can see impressions of people. That's about it. Oh, by the way, you're very beautiful, Miss Vita. Like a bright blue mist watcher. I was afraid to mention it before because the Templars never seemed to like it when I talked about those things, but Jalisa Veta said it was okay now. When is she coming back? I frown a little. Huh. So Melissa has a soul sense? That actually seems pretty obvious in retrospect, considering her whole diet is souls. Even Lark could bite at my tentacles, but I guess Melissa also uses her soul sense to navigate. I'm not sure when you'll see Jalisa again, but I'm sure it won't be too long, I answer non-committally. So, can you make another? She fakes a blink at me, tilting her head with confusion. Another. She chirps. Another baby slime, I clarify. This is working, and I want to talk to my friend again. It's probably best we wait, Theodora butts in. Let's get this slime fed, monitor it, make sure nothing bad happens. And more importantly, we should do the same for Melissa. Vitamin, can you help us gather up some bugs? Sure thing, Dora. Vitamin salutes before bursting off into the forest. Don't call me. Bah, she's gone already, Theodora grumbles. What should I do? I ask. My revenant shrugs. Whatever you like. But if you want to help, just watch and wait. So I do that. For the rest of the day and all through the night, I monitor this dumb slime's condition, occasionally talking to it and feeding it whenever Vitamin returns with a howl. The first time she brought a bunch of bugs back, I accidentally ate them all without thinking about it. Every subsequent time, I had to consciously restrain myself. It's apparently a habit. I've been awake for what must be over 60 hours now, and I don't feel the slightest bit tired. Maybe I'm just loaded up on sleep from all the prison comas I put myself in? Well, whatever the reason, I finally sensed some word recognition from our newly reanimated slime friend the morning after. With some coaxing from Theodora and coaching from Melissa, we get a basic line of communication flowing. And our little baby oozoid reanimation seems sane and stable. That's it then, right? I ask. We did it. Well, there could be any number of long-term complications we don't know about, Theodora insists. But with you here to monitor soul integrity and Melissa's case indicating they should be able to survive without much degradation on a modest diet, I think we might have done it. I take a deep breath, grinning from ear to ear. Then can we do another? I ask. Are you up for that, Melissa? Okay. She says, clenching her little fists with determination. I'll be brave. Cut another piece off of me, Ms. Theodora. This is it, then. I stroke the inert soul of my friend, the slaver I swore to never make a slave. I've grown so much since I last talked to her. I wonder how different things will be without her in my head. Talk to you soon, Penta, I tell her, dropping her soul in the next slime. I keep my promises. Chapter 132 Remus has entered my body. I feel it through her nerves, see it through her senses as the soul of my former partner in possession swims down Remus's arm and into my body's neck. I mean Vida's body. She's in control in every way that matters. I've trained myself to recognize her soul's command signals and repeat them perfectly after interception, letting her control herself in the same way she would have if I were not diffused through the inside of her brain, my excess mass pooled around her spinal column. Still, it's my body in the sense that I'm in it, so Remus, or Remus Lime, as Vida prefers, can't fucking have it. I failed to convince him to compromise, so now I have to genocide my own species. It's a painful pill to swallow. I know it's the right thing, I know what it's like to be trapped inside one of us, I know these humans have more claim to their bodies than we do. So I've been watching my kind die in droves, a mass death I could have stopped in a dozen ways. But I failed all of them. I'm quickly reminded it's a poor time to regret these things as Remus physically slams into me, trying to dislodge me from Vida's neck. I never expected to have this kind of fight, but suddenly I'm locked into a battle using my pathetic slime self instead of a more appropriate vessel. A battle that I quickly realize I'm going to lose, because Remus can apparently use his enhancer training while currently a liquid. He flows into Vida's brain, latches onto my diffused self and sucks it inside of him, cutting it off from my main mass. Then I'm booted out of the spine and into the useless neck muscle, smaller, weaker, and no longer in control. Instantly, I lose almost all of my senses. Without a body I have nothing but a comically undetailed version of Vida's soul sense and a mild sense of touch. I slam myself against Remus, trying to reassert control of Vida, but I may as well be tossing buckets of water at a wall. Then, before I know it, I feel myself being torn apart by a death I recognize from Penelope's memories. Back when her body was mine, she spent a lot of her time reveling in the horror of it, screaming silently within our mind as every step I took further solidified her helplessness. Much of the rest of the time she spent planning diseases and exquisite tortures to enact upon me when she got free. Though later, that changed to if she got free. Feeling her pain and loss of hope was, ironically, a far more haunting torture than any she tried to concoct with her talent. Again, I barely even have a sense of touch, so any pain that targets me while I'm not possessing anyone is distant at worst. Still, it's easy to tell what's happening here. Penelope saw her opportunity for revenge, and she took it. That's fair, I think to myself, and then I die. Didn't I? So why am I still thinking? I experimentally attempt to move, and to my surprise I succeed. I'm surrounded by something cool and hard. I don't seem to be in a body, but things feel different, more detailed and refined. Oh Watcher, is this the afterlife? If the church was right all along, I'm going to be fucking furious. I feel something suddenly ripple through my body, like I've been flicked by an intangible finger. I try to turn my head to look at it, but I have no head and no eyes. Yet still, I focus in the direction and somehow see, for a certain definition of seeing. It's Vida's soul sight. The living glow with power, while soulless objects are vaguely distinguishable as black silhouettes. How am I seeing this way? Am I in Vida's body after all? I glance around and quickly find that theory disproved, surrounded in a glimmering network of inert souls. That terrifying tentacled eyeball stares at me with a horrifying intensity. I shudder. She's different. Very different. We never collected anywhere near the number of souls currently inside of her. How long has it been? Did I die and then get revived? Shit, if that's the case, it must be years from when I last remember. No, wait. I'm still a fucking slime. If Vita was going to revive me, why would she keep me as a Nora? Was this the only way? Why aren't I in a body, then? Did I get brought back just to lose my mind? Immediately, I start pushing against the edges of the container I'm in, trying to break free. I fail, predictably, but I exert enough pressure on the opposite edges to start shimmying rapidly up the cylindrical walls and pop out of the top. More strange vibrations ripple through me, but I ignore them and flow away from. What even was that? A bottle. I spill to the ground, a few bits of my body splashing off as I rush towards the closest body I can see. I refuse to lose my mind. Raw terror descends in front of me, blocking my escape. A wall, a literal wall of Vita's tentacles drop around me, countless in number. Shit, holy shit. What happened to her? What is she doing? Oh no, oh no, oh no. Yet more tentacles fall into the cage, and as I quiver in fear I watch them twist and bend themselves. Into letters? It's okay. Okay? How is any of this okay? Not a Nora. I freeze. Wait, what? She's saying I'm not a Nora? I damn well still feel like a Nora. Mostly, at least. Different slime. Ozoid. You won't degrade. Ozoid. Oh, ozoids. Aren't ozoids non-sapient, though? I wiggle around, flattening my body enough to confirm I can't possibly have a brain. Uranimavris. Soul still burns itself, but slowly. Can't be replenished. The letters flash rapidly in front of me, but sure enough my mind is still working quickly enough to catch them all, even without the support of a thinking organ. This is surreal. I move slowly forward, my body stretching and rotating over what feels like giant blades of grass. No. Normal-sized blades of grass. I'm just back to being tiny again. I can't really decide whether to be grateful or exasperated. I suppose I do have a functional independent body now, but for fuck's sake, why did it have to be, of all things, a different slime? You'll get bigger if you eat. Here. The words make me jump a little. Now that I think about it, how is Vita responding to me? It makes sense that she knows I can see her tentacles, but how does she seem to know what I'm thinking? I suppose she was just starting to figure out how to read information from souls, last I remember. If it really has been years since I died, perhaps she can read minds by now. Either way, my thoughts are put on hold for a bit when someone places a collection of tiny insects in front of me. And I truly mean tiny, each of them is significantly smaller than even my palm-sized body. Following some newfound hunger that fills me, I spill over top of them, a pleasurable tingle filling my soul as I feel them get absorbed into my body and dissolve inside me. It's quite different from the empowering, satisfying joy Vita and I used to get from soul consumption. This new feeling is not unlike a fluffy, airy dessert vanishing rapidly after being put in my mouth. Ah, I loved those back when I had Penelope's body. Though I never had time to eat one myself, did I? And now I'm comparing them to bugs. Ugh. I spill over and dissolve more insects, Vita occasionally chatting with me through our limited, mostly one-way capacity. With my soul senses I can look around and identify a bit of where I am. Best I can tell we're somewhere in the forest. I even recognize some of the other souls around me. Vitamin is here, along with both Theodora's. And all of them look like they're in human bodies. I think irritated thoughts in their general direction until Vita figures out what I mean and explains. Not alive. Revenants. In love with me. That's a bit chilling. I look up at that expressionless burning blue eye, wondering how far Vita has fallen in my absence to turn so many people into slaves. I certainly understand the hypocrisy there, I suppose. But I had no choice, if I wanted to remain a person. Did she? Would you prefer? Vita asks me suddenly. Would I prefer being a revenant to my current situation? Shit, what a thing to say. I think as firm of a negation as I'm able and she nods, ending the conversation. What the fuck is going through that girl's head? I suppose I'll need to wait to grill her with more complicated questions. It's infuriating to not know what she's thinking. Speaking with her is so stunted now, so impersonal. She says there's another slime that can hear him speak, so I suppose I should focus my efforts on learning those skills again. So that's what I spend the next few hours doing. My memories, Penelope's contribution to them, anyway, hold wonderfully efficient strategies for learning new skills, not to mention a wealth of biological knowledge I can use to help form the artificial lungs and voice box described by this Melissa person with Vita as a medium. I have to admit, this Ozoid body is an impressive upgrade from my Nora form. Nora are kind of runny as liquids go, designed for the ability to permeate into flesh and spread throughout a brain. I'm still a liquid, but I'm a much more solid liquid, if that makes any sense. My body is far stronger and can hold shapes drastically better than my Nora body ever could. I actually figure out how to speak before I figure out how to hear, because the former means shaping myself to replicate systems I already understand, while the latter involves changing my fundamental understanding of a system I'm already used to. The rippling vibrations I've been feeling? That sound. I don't have ears, my whole body is the ear. In fact, I now hear sounds with the exact same part of my sensorium that feels whatever I'm touching, and it's extremely disorienting. Learning which internal jiggles correspond to which words is a pain in my non-existent ass, but it's also fascinating, in a way. It's a challenge to tear into, one that I can take my time with and not have to worry about torturing Penelope or boring Vita or slowly reverting into a non-person. It's such an incredible gift. Plus, the work fills the emptiness. It's so strange to be alone. So scary. This is the first time it's ever happened. I didn't think I'd find myself missing having someone else to be. That's just a passing thought, though. I'll get used to it. It takes me about a day, but pretty soon I start figuring out the trick to equating vibrations felt with my new body to sounds I heard with my old body, and before I know it, I'm back to being able to hear again. Which means, Vita. I shout up at her. Though I'm so small, it's more of a squeak. What the fuck happened? Very vaguely, enough that I'm not sure it's happening, I see her grin. I'll need to figure out how to read souls the way she can, because expressions don't seem like they're going to be a long-term solution. Penta, Vita says happily. Her tone is subtle, but I remember the subtleties. They are different now, harder and flatter from how we spoke with them 2 years ago, but she still speaks with our voice. 2 years, though. It's so difficult to believe. It all feels like yesterday. It's great to have you back, Vita continues. Can you make yourself solid? It's not that hard, I grumble. Though I guess I have more experience being liquid than poor Melissa. Pick me up? She does so, and I dutifully do not start to dissolve her hands as she sets me on her shoulder. Get into the neck, my old instincts hiss, but they hold no sway over me now. I couldn't if I wanted to. Shit's been wild without you, Penta, Vita admits. I can only imagine, I drawl. Which is why I just asked you what happened. She chuckles. Well, after Penelope did a little bit of premeditated murder on you, Watcher's eyes, I am not the least bit surprised about that, I grumble. I returned home and quickly had to start dealing with a Vrothizo problem. What's a Vrothizo? I ask. Remember those black orbs Herveric dropped on us? She asks. The ones I thought were eggs? I was totally right. I sagged despondently. Of course you were. So yeah, they hatched into soul-eating rapidly evolving pitch-black monster creatures. One of them tortured some hunters by repeatedly biting off their limbs and letting their biomancer heal them, then doing it again. But then she got so much human soul stuck to her own she started to feel bad about it. So I let her go. Every single part of that was horrifying, I say frankly. What? She says. I thought you'd approve. Solidarity between monsters. You were the one who said that. I just repeated it back at you in an attempt to get you to treat me better. Oh. She coos, pressing a finger onto me and jiggling my whole body, which feels extremely strange. I knew there was some Penelope in you. Of course there's. What does that even mean? I jiggle back at her with as much indignance as I can muster, trying to reshape my body as she continues to prod at me. That larger slime moves around in a human shape from time to time. I can probably do just as well, even if I'm a fraction of her size. Well, I'm just a little worried you two won't get along? Vida says hesitantly. It's kind of funny, actually. You were always the one urging me to get along with her. I can't decide whether to be relieved or hurt by the fact that you didn't kill her after finding out she murdered me, I grumble. My objective was always the hope that she'd spare me for your sake. I suppose it didn't really work out. What's she up to, anyway? Oh, she's a first lady now. Vida answers happily. It's pretty cool. Thanks to years of expression training, years of Penelope's training, I don't flinch at that. I wanted to be first lady. She's also my girlfriend, Vida continues, and my mind just about stops. How does? Why are? What? You seem upset? Vida asks, furrowing her brows. Why? How does that even work? I nearly shriek. I know I asked you to get close, but neither of you are attracted to women. She's attracted to me for some reason, Vida grumbles. But not finding her attractive is part of what I like about our relationship. No sex, no kissing. I don't want to be into her, I hate that stuff. Okay, that sort of makes sense, actually. Vida has a lot of hang-ups in the department, though I get the impression now she's more certain of her position than she was when I had her memories. It's a shame. I recall a few fun times. Well, a few fun times Penelope had. Shit, this is so weird. Now that I think about it, I was looking forward to having sex for myself at some point, yet that's off the table for the immediate future. No, wait, I need to quit lamenting my body and focus on how damn freaky this is. Vida and Penelope doing the deed is a weirdly masturbatory thought, and I'm in no hurry to unpack it. More importantly, Penelope doesn't do relationships. She doesn't do attraction. She has and enjoys sex, but it's usually despite the other people involved, not because of it. Our entire engagement was a political calculation where we carefully manipulated First Lord Johann Uribe's emotions in order to receive power, money, and favors. Vida, she's using you for something, I conclude. She has to be. Well, yeah, Vida nods. Cuddles, mostly. No, you dense dolt, I'm saying she's faking it. Vida flicks me, destabilizing the start of a humanoid form I've been trying to shape myself into and causing me to collapse back into a puddle. I'm an empath, Penta, she reminds me. I promise, she's not faking it. Honestly, I think she's just as surprised as you are that she fell in love with me. I just find her easy to understand, I guess? And she likes that? I literally was Penelope Vesuvius, and I still find her difficult to understand, I grumble. Nah, she's really not that complicated, Vida shrugs. I don't know why it's such a big deal. I'm not sure what to say to that, so I give up and return to shaping my body. I understand almost everything there is to know about the internal structure of the human body, but more than that I've got a very fine sense of what makes the external structure of a human body appealing to look at. If I can't be a beautiful human, hopefully I can at least look like a beautiful human in miniature. In addition to a better sense of touch, my body's proprioception is excellent. Crafting my face is my first task, as humans tend to empathize most with creatures that have attractive faces unless that human happens to be Vida. It's nowhere near as difficult a task as I was expecting, however, which I suppose makes sense considering that Melissa purportedly managed it. I can feel how my face looks, adjusting it accordingly. The most difficult part of the task is deciding how I want my face to look. My first instinct is to copy Penelope's face, but I reject that on the basis of not wanting to die. My second instinct is to take Vida's, but I pretty quickly see the pattern there and decide that it's somewhat of a step backwards to kick off my new, non-stolen body with stolen body features. Yet at the same time, those are my faces. Those are the only faces I ever had. Well, fuck it. My name is a mix, why not my face? Vida and Penelope have two very different sorts of beauty, Penelope's sharper features are rounded out by a rich diet, giving her a mild squishiness around her entire body that, now that I'm thinking about it, would make for a Roscotier cuddle. Vida, conversely, has a naturally rounder face that's drawn more gauntly. Simply taking the more extreme parts of either and swapping them is a tempting idea, but the end result would look somewhat silly. Vida's eyes, Penelope's lips and nose, and a decent middle ground between their general face shape is the way to go. I can use a similar strategy for the body. Vida's relative squatness would look quite nice with Penelope's more ample proportions. I craft a head around my face, shrinking it down to an appropriate percentage of my body mass as I extend from it the neck, the bare shoulders, the arms mirroring each other as I craft them with delicate attention to how the appropriate amount of muscle and fat would rest on the bones if I actually had any of those things. Each finger takes a detailed session of imagery to finish, but soon after I'm sculpting the torso, breasts, waist, hips, thighs. I allow myself to cheat a little with the thickness of the thighs and down to the delicate toes. I'm not entirely sure how long the process takes, but I'm so immersed in it that I'm surprised I don't see anything when I open my eyes. Right. I'm blind. I kick my goopy little feet, dangling over Vida's shoulder as they are. This is far from the body I wanted, but at least it's mine. It will do for now. Oh hey! Vida exclaims. You done? You've certainly made quite a fascinating show of your plagiarism, I'll give you that. I freeze. Shit. Is that? Penelope. Vida chides. Be nice to my little baby shoulder slime. You already got to murder her painfully, right? Oh, I suppose, Penelope sighs despondently. Welcome back from the pier, Penta. Thank you, Penelope, I answer. No, she grunts. It's First Lady Vesuvius to you. Part of my hand melts as my focus flickers with annoyance. She knows I wanted to be a First Lady, doesn't she? Of course, First Lady Vesuvius, I answer without a hint of the ice I want to put in my tone. Apologies. Penelope does that very specific sort of laugh we use when mocking someone, adding just the slightest tinge of inappropriate volume and length to make it extra obnoxious. I respond by shaping my face into the I know you're mocking me but I have to suck up to you smile, which wins me a more genuine laugh when she recognizes it. Point one to me, bitch. Perhaps she might not be so bad after all, Penelope muses. I'm sure she can be of great assistance with my experiments. She knows almost everything I know, after all. Yeah. Vida says slowly. Do you mean she'll be helpful like Theodora, or like Nugas? Who's Nugas? I ask. Penelope just grins wide enough for me to realize she actually went and grew herself fangs. Shit, that's cool. Also, neither of them answer me and I'm pretty sure that means I should be terrified. Ladies. I ask politely, glancing between them. Who's Nugas? Don't look at me, Vida grunts. She's your freaky experiment mistake daughter thing. D-daughter? Penelope sputters. Nugas is not my. Oh, watcher, that's disgusting. Hey, Vitamin said she was, Vida shrugs. And it kind of makes sense. You and especially Vitamin have an incredibly warped perspective of what constitutes motherhood. What's that supposed to mean? Wait, I press. You actually adopted Vitamin? Of course I did. Vida scoffs. You know that, you were there. Yes, but that was a passing fancy, you never loved her. You just thought she was cute. You don't care about her in the way a mother should. I want to say all of those things, but I shut my mouth and say none of them. Where does that emotion come from, anyway? That knowledge. Penelope never had a mother who cared for her, and Vida's relationship to Lynn is more gratitude on her end than anything. My silence wasn't quick enough, though. Vida intuits what I was going to say, and her gaze is scathing. I quiver as ghostly tentacles curl dangerously around me. She's just angry, though, not making an actual threat. Vida threatens people clearly and verbally, or not at all. She's misinterpreted the threats of other kids too many times and doesn't like being misunderstood herself. So, I'm safe to push a little further. If things have changed since then, I whisper, why are you angry? Her soul eye flinches, looking away as her tentacles drop. I don't know why I care about this, but I'm glad she's thinking about it. Though I'm a little worried about making her too grumpy. You know what? Vida snaps, proving my fears. I was just making sure Penelope wasn't going to kill you before I head out, but all of a sudden I'm feeling pretty good about the whole thing. You two catch up. Wait. I protest as she reaches over to grab me off her shoulder. Where are you going? Can't I go with you? I don't care how angry Vida is, it's better than being left alone with Penelope. I know the sort of grudges she keeps. I mean, you can if you really want to, Vida grunts. But I was planning to go fight a dragon. I stop flowing through her fingers in an attempt to escape. Did I hear that right? No, surely I messed up interpreting those sounds. Please go with her, Penelope says sweetly. It would tie things up nicely. You can't fight a fucking dragon. I squeak. Sure I can, Vida shrugs. Why shouldn't I? Nora and I probably have it in the bag, especially if we can find some good reason to make on the way. Dragons are absurdly dangerous. I insist. You could die. Well yeah, but then I get to be a dragon, Vida answers, grinning. So it's really kind of a win-win. Vida, if you can't kill the dragon by just rending its soul from its body, you probably can't possess it, Penelope chides. Yeah, she grumbles. Ruin my fun, why don't you? Anyway, here. One goopy personified trauma, just for you. Possession. No, wait, I'm going to get stuck with Penelope. I wiggle and flop to no avail as Vida hands me over. The noblewoman accepts me with a malicious grin. Oh, Vida, she coos. It's just what I wanted. I relax a tad. That's the I'm acting happy ironically because I know I can't actually do what I want here tone. She's my friend, Penelope, Vida reminds her, to emphasize the point. Even if I did forget how annoying she can be. I'll be gentle with her, Penelope says flatly. Just leave enough of the dragon intact to get me some fresh scale samples. I want to see if I can grow them out of things. Will do, Vida agrees, wrapping her tentacles around Penelope and somehow lifting her, and therefore me, up off the ground with them, pulling her in for a hug. Be back in a few days. Love you, sweetie, Penelope says, squeezing Vida back hard enough to splatter my body painfully between them. Hey, Vida grumbles, releasing us. You two get along, okay? I'd really prefer to just avoid her, I manage to say, slowly reconstituting myself. Well, I thought the same about her when I first met you, and you insisted we could be good friends, Vida reminds me. It obviously worked out pretty well. When I said I thought you'd get along, I was lying, I answer bluntly. I just knew Penelope would want to use you to learn animancy, and if you weren't valuable to her she'd probably kill me. Huh? Vida says. Well, I actually think you'll get along, so based on current trends I expect you to be married when I get back. Bye. Not how that works, Vida, Penelope calls back blandly, but she seems to be smiling, and not using any of her double-meaning tones. I try to sigh, though it ends up making a wet flatulent noise as it passes through my body. There goes my protection against a sadistic, vindictive woman who hates me. Now what's my angle? Logically speaking, I try, it would be better for both of us to get along. Grudges are counterproductive. Yes, I agree completely, Penelope nods along dangerously. I propose we therefore take whatever steps are most likely to free me of that grudge in an expedient manner. Follow me somewhere private, would you? Shit, I walked right into that one. Quivering, I cease trying to maintain my humanoid shape and fully liquid it, dropping to the ground. Penelope starts to walk off and I follow her as best I can. It takes all the speed I can muster in order to keep up with her lazy pace, though. How annoying. If there was one advantage to my Nora body, it was certainly a lot faster. What are we, going to do, then? I ask, once the two of us are away from camp. Penelope laughs, and it's chillingly real. Ah, Penta. I have to admit, I truly am grateful to you for convincing Vita to show me animancy. I've become quite proficient with it in the meantime. Oh, fuck. I immediately switch direction and try to sprint away, but she easily steps past me, her boot crashing down less than an inch away. I originally thought I would be satisfied with killing you, Penelope muses. But I was quite wrong. It just wasn't enough because you didn't suffer. You never went through anything nearly as bad as what I did. I did go through that, I insist. I was you. I experienced every moment of your torment. You know, Penta. Penelope muses. I think the saddest part of your existence is that you truly believe it's the same. But look at this. It's your own body, freshly booted, just for you. Perhaps it would help you understand. She reaches down and strokes her fingers over me. In terror I try to dissolve her, to burn her, but her skin ignores it. If you experience that terror more personally. A surge of mana jolts through me. I try to scream, but my body is no longer my own. Watcher, damn it. I just got this thing. Chapter 133. Considering how hard I'm struggling to not be violent, I really would have appreciated it if violence didn't cleanly solve my problems. Yet after establishing dominance on Melik and Gina, I was barely even reprimanded. I was reprimanded, at least a little. Not because I shattered multiple ribs in two of my fellow trainees and damaged their lungs enough that they might have died without biomantic support, though. No, I just got a slap on the wrist for that, which is a strange metaphor. Instead, people mainly got mad because my excessive force damaged the barracks. Melik and Gina, meanwhile, got thoroughly chewed out, which is a terrifying metaphor for provoking me. The next day, I was back to classes as usual, except now those classes were significantly more enjoyable due to the absence of Melik and Gina. A couple days later, Melik and Gina were back for everything other than the combat classes, including returning to our dorm room. She's been ignoring me, but honestly, that's some of the best treatment I've gotten from Gina since we first met. Melik glares daggers at me, a confusing metaphor, every time I walk by, which is a little hurtful but pretty tolerable overall. So after all that, after I hurt some people on purpose after all this time, life just goes on. Hey Lark, Xavier says, nearly unintelligible since his mouth is completely full of food. You've got your depressed face on. I blink in surprise, glancing sheepishly across the table at him and Bentley. We're in the cafeteria together, as Xavier finally managed to convince me to eat with him. I've got my armor mostly off, and underneath the table I'm busying my lower two arms learning to weave more complex clothing with my webs than wrappings and cloak. Sorry, I mutter, grabbing an unconscious mouse from my food box and swallowing it whole. Hey, none of that, Xavier chides lightly. You got nothing to be sorry for, so no apologies. I know, I grumble. Sorry. I jolt slightly as I realize what I've just said, and Xavier busts out laughing. Hard habit to break, isn't it? He smirks. Seriously though, you good? You wanna talk about it? I sigh through my nose, flicking my ear as I glance away. Not really, I mumble. I'm just thinking about Gina and Melik again. You mean how you trounced them 2-on-1 like a complete badass? Xavier prods, knowing that's not right because we've talked about this before. No. I seriously injured both of them, but they got harsher punishments than I did, I press. I don't like it. I should be punished. They made you fix the mess you made in the courtyard by yourself, Bentley chimes in between bites. That's not a punishment, that's just work, I dismiss. I got it done overnight. Which is to say you labored non-stop, by yourself, in the dark, during the entire 12-hour nighttime of Titan's Discus, Xavier smirks. We would have helped if you'd just asked us. Bentley frowns. That's why I didn't ask you, I say flatly. You need sleep, I don't. I'm just saying, it feels weird. I know that Harvey vouched for me and went over how Melik and Gina pretty much wouldn't take no for an answer, but I should have gone to a superior or something instead of breaking their ribs. Hardly anyone seemed to care, though. Our combat instructor seemed happy. I think he's happy because you're putting more effort into his class, Bentley says quietly. You never really fought back in spars until recently. Well, now I know exactly how fragile you humans are, I admit, swallowing another mouse. I don't have to worry about hurting you as much. Xavier suddenly starts laughing. Shit, I love how you're not even joking, he chuckles. You just bust out lines like that with such seriousness. Language, I grumble, and he laughs again. And why wouldn't I be serious? It's absolutely terrifying being around people all the time. If I kick someone too hard, my foot goes through their torso. If I twitch my quills at the wrong time, I could cut someone in half. When Bentley punched me in the face during our spar yesterday, I nearly bit his hand clean off. Sorry, Bentley says quietly. No, no. I insist quickly. I'm fine, Bentley, it was a great hit. You surprised me. See? Xavier says smugly, waving his food-filled fork at me. Friends apologizing for things they shouldn't doesn't feel good. I let out a long sigh. I get it, I just wish Xavier would stop repeating himself. If there's one thing that's really starting to frustrate me about humans, it's how often they repeat themselves. I slurp down my last two mice, glowering slightly at Xavier as he watches me with a slightly uncomfortable amount of fascination. You should honestly get some cafeteria food, Xavier says, thankfully changing the subject. You're entitled to a portion, as a trainee. I frown slightly at the image of trying to eat any of that disgusting slop, absent-mindedly patting my own belly in sympathy. Pretty much anything that isn't alive tastes equally terrible to me, and if I swallow something that doesn't really feed me, it still vanishes from the inside of my body like anything else does. But the idea of actually eating the vaguely white mush Xavier and Bentley devour by the bowl fills me with a special kind of revulsion. I literally can't digest that stuff, I remind him. It doesn't help me at all. Yeah, but then you could give it to Bentley and I, Xavier points out, wiggling his eyebrows. I curl up the talons of one foot, anxiously tapping my toe knuckles on the floor. I'll think about it. Though on the subject of gluttony, I should probably see if Lady Vesuvius would be willing to increase my food allotment. 4 mice feels like it's not taking the edge off as much anymore. It's like my stomach is getting annoyed with me for only feeding at the bare minimum possible. Xavier nods in an understanding manner, wolfing down more of his food. Well, if you ever start feeling a bit too munchy, he says after swallowing, feel free to swallow one of my hands. Especially if it's before a big test. I can always use the extra study time. I stiffen, momentarily paralyzed by a wretched mix of memory and temptation. He said it was okay. He said it was okay. That means I can, right? It would be fine. Lady Vesuvius could heal him without issue, I bet. It would. No. Xavier, I say firmly. Please don't ever joke about that again. He blinks, nodding slowly. All right, he concedes. I won't. My bad. Thank you. I stand up, my body shaking a little as it screams to hunt. With a twitch of my claws I cut the threads of my weaving project free from hands, draping the half-finished sleeve thing over my shoulder as I turn to walk away. Hey, Lark! Bentley calls out, stopping me in my tracks. My ears are flat against my head and it's an effort of will to not extend my quills at him. Which would not be appropriate because he is my friend, even though I tried to kill him that one time. I think it's really cool how hard you try, Bentley continues. Can confirm, Xavier chimes in. You're pretty cool. Don't forget it. I sigh. So you've both told me, I say flatly. Over a dozen times each. Why do you keep repeating it? Because I know incredibly depressed and in desperate need of positive reinforcement when I see it, Xavier says, and though I'm not facing him I can practically feel him make a lopsided grin. So if you want me to stop, you're going to have to start believing me. Or just be good enough at hiding it that I don't notice anymore, I guess. It'd be unfair of me to not allow that strategy. I glance back at him and raise an eyebrow. Sure enough, he's flashing a sardonic grin my way. I do like Xavier, but times like these I find him really really hard to understand. He can be a lot. I'll be okay, I reassure him. I just need to move around a little before we go to history class. Not entirely accurate, but it's a much easier thing to say that I plan to go get down on 6 limbs in the courtyard and vibrate my quills until I'm nothing but a frozen, black circle pulsing in the daylight. I wish they absorbed sound like they do light and heat, so I could also spend the time screaming. Still, I feel better after stretching my back a bit, though I wish I had a hot bath to do it in. I suppose I'm technically allowed in the baths in the barracks, but I accidentally terrified a few people when I tried it a few days ago. Plus, they just aren't that warm, and generally nowhere near as nice as Guldra's bath. Hopefully I'll figure out how to channel soon and can learn some thermomancy. Once I'm fairly certain class will start in 5 minutes or so, I quickly wind down, ceasing my quill's vibrations and standing back up on 2 legs, stretching the rest of my body. Someone else entered the courtyard and stopped nearby, but I'm a bit surprised when I glance over and realize she has been staring at me, possibly the whole time she's been here. It's a woman of middling height, light brown skin, brown eyes, brown hair, and a barely perceptible collection of small scars around her face, particularly her eyes and nose, that look like they're from fingernails. On her back she carries a set of full Templar armor, strapped up for transport and adorned with the black stripes of the Inquisition. In one hand she has a thick stack of papers. She steps forward and she extends her other gloved hand to shake, giving me a tart smile. "You must be Lark, then," the woman says. I splay my toes a bit, trying to hide my nervousness as I reach out to accept her handshake. I've never seen this lady before in my life, but I suppose anyone in this part of the barracks is clear to know about me. She smells quite weak, though, at least by Templar standards. She'd go down in under a second. Easy meal. "That's me," I say out loud, letting her control the speed and force of the handshake. Something about this woman seems odd, and I'm not quite sure how to put my finger on it. "Inquisitor Captain Jelisaveta, I suppose," she introduces herself. "In the coming days I'll be replacing High Templar Gulra Carthala as your escort." The documentation says handler, but I don't really like that wording. I open my mouth to say something, but no words come out, so I close it again. "What? Is Gulra leaving?" But she's been so nice to me. It's sad to have her unexpectedly replaced like this, but more important than that. "You're a terrible replacement for the High Templar, ma'am," I say frankly. The woman seems more curious than offended. Her eyes flick quickly over me, darting across my body for some purpose I can't divine. "What makes you say that?" she asks me. "Gulra is a deterrent," I say. "Gulra can stop me if I try to hurt people." "You can't." "Ah," Captain Jelisaveta allows understandingly. "Is that a problem that's come up recently? Or do you plan to go around eating people now that she's away?" No. I protest immediately. "No, I mean, I did injure a couple of my fellow trainees, but I didn't bite them or anything. I don't want to hurt anyone, ma'am." She starts to respond, but a yawn cuts her off. I wait for her to continue. "Well, how about you just do me a favor and continue not hurting anyone, then?" she asks blandly. "My room in the barracks is across from yours. Knock if you want or need to go anywhere. I'm taking a nap." With that, she departs, leaving me speechless. I suppose I have somewhere to be, though, so I show up to history class moments before it starts, taking my seat and immediately restarting on my weaving project. I'm getting faster and faster at reading, and these classes seem to just be the instructor rambling about the things we were assigned to read beforehand anyway. Said instructor doesn't seem to like it very much, but I've given up trying to get her to like me. "Today is going to be a little different from usual," she says, causing me to twist my ears her way. "Though we'll still be reviewing the material you were assigned tomorrow, we're going to do a surprise segment on much more recent history, the Ars Crisis." I don't know what that is, so I stop weaving and look up. "I know that all of you were alive during this period, which makes it a somewhat strange subject to cover in a church history class. But arguably it is because of the strong emotions tied to that fraught period in Vaca's relatively brief life as a country that we must look back and re-examine it with fresh eyes, as openly and with as little bias as we can muster. Not that the unbiased telling of events paints ours as anything less than an unrepentant, blasphemous monster, either. I hesitantly raise my hand to ask permission to speak. The instructor glowers at me a little, but calls my name. "What is it, Lark?" she asks. "I don't believe I was alive for this period," I say hesitantly. "Unless it just never reached the places I was living?" I can almost feel the rest of the class wonder how old I am before coming to the inevitable conclusion. I try not to wince. Humans always act strangely about my age. Well, the instructor sighs, this actually presents us with a convenient segue. Much like our current crisis with the Vrothizo, the threat had been out there, growing in strength for years, but only when it was dropped on top of our heads did we truly become aware of the extent of the danger. My ears go flat against my head, but I shut up as the instructor continues to speak. Ours was a master animancer, specializing in the creation of enslaved soul amalgamations and subverting his enemies into allies. Before we became aware of the crisis, he had already become a First Lord and High Inquisitor, likely through the corruption of his betters. For all his faults, however, he was clever and subtle. It is entirely possible that we would have never noticed his perversion were he not betrayed by two of his own creations, Manus and Enteritus. Together, they secretly compiled proof of ours wrongdoing and released it as publicly as possible, preventing ours from using animancy to wipe the problem away by simply creating too many people who knew the truth. This worked, and the purging of ours evil began in earnest. Though with the downside of inciting the people of Vaca into a nearly uncontrollable panic. She flicks her fingers rapidly, and soon an illusory scene springs to life in front of her, a street aflame, Templars trapped between an angry mob and ours corrupted Templars. Ours leaned into this chaos, the instructor continues, and the first part of the Ars crisis began in earnest. He would alter the minds of people seemingly at random, turning them into assassins or double agents in public ways that demanded attention from the Templars, splitting our forces while he corrupted more and more of us on the side. Many of the most talented members of the Inquisition were his puppets, and they spread their influence to nearly half the Inquisition's numbers, abusing a weakness in the decontamination procedures of the time to slip mental influence by our people unnoticed. Eventually, a new method of detecting and decontaminating an individual from Ars influence was formalized. These procedures, developed by the now current High Inquisitor Shamil, formed the backbone of our ability to fight against Ars mind-bending influence. Rather than running around desperately trying to put out metaphorical and literal fires, we could establish a secure and reliable force with which to go on the offensive. The illusory scene changes, now showing squads of Templars sizing up against twisted caricatures of what I assume to be Ars and his followers. Unfortunately, while the Inquisition was inoculated against his influence, they lacked the numbers to protect everyone in Skyhope from his control. Ars cared little for collateral damage, teleporting around the city using the abilities of one of his splices, working on what he could, and escaping before the Inquisition could catch him. Eventually, however, we outpredicted him, and the first official kill on Ars is attributed to High Templar Brahm the Ubiquitous. A ripple of confusion and worry pulses through the room, and our instructor smiles grimly. "Yes, you heard me right," she says. "The first kill." Thus we get to the second half of the Ars crisis, where it was revealed the man had the ability to take new bodies upon death. Most of the general public doesn't know about this, but thanks to Inquisitor Captain Manus we discovered Ars was alive and well before it was too late. Rumors of this ability escaped, but we did our best to quash them and control the public terror that followed. It is, however, real, and over the course of the continued crisis that followed, which was publicly blamed on the chaos caused by the splices and other Ars loyalists still active following his initial death, Ars was slain in battle no less than 5 other times, only to reappear as someone new. We named the ephemeral, body-hopping monster Ars turned himself into Lich, and devoted ourselves to stopping it. To end the crisis, our High Templars worked with Inquisitor Captain Manus in order to capture Ars alive, trapping him in his own body rather than allowing him to take a new one and escape again. The final illusion shows a man wrapped in restraints, being taken out of the city and locked away. Then, it winks out, the instructor clasping her hands behind her back as she looks out at the class. Now, the more thoughtful among you are asking yourselves, why are we discussing this now? Well, as I'm sure you know, a few days ago our city entered a skirmish with a powerful necromancer. This necromancer single-handedly defeated 3 of our army's tactical officers by herself, killing 2 of them before fleeing. Before her escape, however, she identified herself as Vita, the same name as the child of Ars Rainier, and now confirmed to be history's second lich. It is believed that Ars himself is free as well, though his whereabouts are unknown. The instructor casts a sad smile over the class. One could argue you picked a rather poor time to join the Templars, she admits. Should you graduate, you can expect yourselves to be facing not only Hiveric's brood, but the revival of the greatest threat of our generation. Obviously, everything you've learned today is top secret, and revealing it to anyone outside this barracks is grounds for immediate expulsion from the trainee program and serious punishment on top of that. Questions and answers start to fly around me, though most of my attention is stolen as I glance towards Bentley, who looks almost physically ill at the news. Vita. She's back, she's alive. I'd heard the rumors, but to have it spelled out so plainly in front of me? It's a chilling feeling, knowing the monster I am my life to still prowls around. I wish I had a better impression of who she is. Should I talk with Bentley? It might help him to have someone to talk to about Vita, but this seems pretty personal and I'd really just be doing it for my own curiosity. The question is mostly irrelevant, I guess, because we're too busy to start a conversation as we sit through class after class. Different people treat the news differently. Gina and Xavier don't seem to be affected much, Harvey is. Well, as hard for me to read as always, but to my surprise, Melik of all people seems extra disturbed. He barely even glares at me for the whole rest of the day. After class I'm no less busy. I have an appointment with Lady Vesuvius, which means I need to promptly get all my armor back on, return to the dorms, and... well, normally I would wait for Lady Carthula, but I suppose I need to knock on Captain Jalisavetta's door instead. I do so, then wait silently as I feel her wake up. It doesn't take her long, just a minute or so and she's finished dressing, at the door. "You need something, trainee?" she asks, and I get that weird feeling again. What is? Oh. She doesn't recognize me because of the armor, I bet. "It's Lark, ma'am," I remind her helpfully. "I know," she says. "We met. What, a few hours ago? Do you have somewhere you need to be?" She's in uniform, so I can't see her expression, but I guess I was just wrong? She recognized me through my disguise somehow. Which is weird because I don't know. She just acts weird. She's so nonchalant. "I have an appointment with my assigned biomancer, First Lady Vesuvius," I inform her. "Wow, that figures," Captain Jalisavetta sighs. "Sure. Let's get going, then." "That's it, huh?" "Have you, seen Avrothizo before?" I ask. "I got eaten by one, actually," she answers. "Partially, anyway. My team saved my life and Lady Vesuvius regrew my limbs." "Oh," I murmur. "Another hard fail on that prediction. I guess I'm not as good at understanding people as I thought. Sorry about that." "Not like you ate me," Captain Jalisavetta answers, shrugging as she exits her room. I quickly follow her. "I'm just surprised you don't seem nervous," I admit. "Or fascinated, I guess. Most people are one or the other around me. It's only Xavier and Penelope that seem fascinated, but there's no reason to call them out on that." "I'm too tired to be nervous," Captain Jalisavetta grunts. "Don't worry about it." "Oh no, are you okay?" I ask seriously. I know humans get tired all the time, but my only real experience with extended, Full-bodied exhaustion comes from moments where I'm seriously injured and low on blood. It's not a fun experience, and I doubt it's much less awful to live through just because it happens to humans a lot. I'll be fine, she answers, nodding. Thanks for asking. You are very polite. I blink, jolting a little as we walk. Thank you, I say, meaning it. I was taught that it's always good to be polite. Oh yeah? She asks, and I immediately regret my answer because she then says, by who? I glance away, trying to focus on anything other than the taste of his blood falling down my throat. A very good man, I admit. One I ended up killing. I see, Captain Jelisaveta answers, and we remain silent until reaching Lady Vesuvius' laboratory. The huge, mostly wooden building has the same sharp smell as always, one I've gotten used to over the dozen or so times I've been here. Captain Jelisaveta seems to be looking around with great interest, however. I suppose most people haven't ever been inside. It doesn't take long for us to be escorted to the room Lady Vesuvius does her usual checkups in, and sure enough she's waiting for us when we enter. Welcome, Lark, she says, smiling cheerfully. And is this Inquisitor Captain Jelisaveta? Congratulations on the promotion. Thank you, my lady, Jelisaveta says politely, and my ears twitch slightly as I almost hear Lady Vesuvius whisper something under her breath. It's so quiet I can't make out a single word of it, though. Well, go ahead and get most of that armor off, Lark, Lady Vesuvius says primly. Captain, if you'd wait outside. Captain Jelisaveta bows slightly and exits, waiting on the other side of the door. No fussing about like Vigor does. I almost miss it. Until I think about what she used to do to my ears. I don't really have anything fancy on the agenda today, just a general checkup. Lady Vesuvius reports. Huh? She seems kind of tired, too. Well, I can't say I mind, I admit. It's not really fun getting bits of me chopped off. She smiles thinly. Sorry about that, she says. But knowing how fast your kind regenerates could potentially be life-saving data. I understand, I tell her, meaning it. Do whatever you have to in order to protect people from my brothers and sisters. I fear it will be your nieces and nephews soon, as well, Lady Vesuvius sighs, starting to cast her analysis spell as I finish stripping down to my underwear. I estimate your body will reach sexual maturity sometime within the next 6 months, possibly as soon as 1 month. If we assume your siblings grow at a similar rate, well, our exponential problem will start its multiplication soon. Speaking of, make sure to report to me if you start feeling any abnormalities in your body or its natural urges. I nod slowly. That sounds bad. All I have to report is that I feel like I need more food, I tell her. I'm getting hungrier more quickly and feeling less satisfied by meals. Lady Vesuvius hums. How bad is it? If possible, I'd like to test changing your diet to a different animal before we test increasing the physical mass fed to you. I raise my eyebrows a bit, but nod. That sounds great, I hate mice. Sure, I say. I should be fine for another couple weeks at least, if that doesn't help. Assuming it doesn't keep getting worse, I guess. Lady Vesuvius nods, descending into an uncharacteristic silence after that. She's normally quite chattery, so it's making me a little worried. Forgive me if this is too personal, but is everything okay, Lady Vesuvius? She looks up, quickly hiding a bit of surprise at my question before giving me a soft smile. More or less, yes, she tells me. I'm just a bit melancholy. It's Have you ever spent a long time looking forward to something, only to realize once you get it that you're no longer the person that wanted it in the first place? And the new you no longer loves that thing, I continue understandingly. But it's too late after you've done it. Exactly, Lady Vesuvius agrees, sighing. May I ask what happened? I inquire curiously. It's rare that Lady Vesuvius opens up much about herself. Let's just say I'm no longer a girl that likes playing with toys, she murmurs. Nor anything that reminds me of them. Oof, I get that. I used to love toys, but now they just remind me of August. I nod understandingly, feeling a rare moment of kinship with this weird, aggressive woman. Though if you don't mind me changing the subject, I did have a non-medically related question for you, Lady Vesuvius says, injecting a seemingly artificial cheer into her voice. What is your opinion on tails? Huh? I sputter, feeling a bit of conversational whiplash. What do you mean? Tails, Lady Vesuvius repeats. I know you don't have one, but you're generally experienced at finding yourself with exciting new body parts, aren't you? What sort of things would you look for and dread in a tail? Well, I don't really want a tail, so if I started to grow one I'd hope it ends up as small and innocuous as possible, I answer simply. And why don't you want one? She presses. Well, it wouldn't help me, I explain. The key strengths of my body come from being light and fast. A tail would be extra weight for nothing. Balance? I don't have issues with it. Prehensile capabilities? I already have 4 arms, I don't need it. Lady Vesuvius ponders, tapping her chin. Well, I've been thinking of growing myself a tail, lately. I suppose I'm coming at it with the opposite intention, though. I want more mass, or specifically more volume. I need extra space for internal structures, and rather than expanding my height for relatively minimal gains, I figure I should take the next step of my evolution. But I'm trying to think about what pitfalls I should be mindful of before finalizing the concept. Well, she's back to being weird again, at least. Which is comforting somehow. I don't know Lady Vesuvius all that well, but I don't want her to be distressed. So big like a snake tail? I ask. Not in the sense of it replacing your legs, but in the sense that it retains your normal body width throughout most of its length rather than being significantly thinner than the rest of you like a cat or tapering like a lizard. Yes, that would be the best way to maximize volume, she nods. But I'm worried about it being too cumbersome. I certainly don't need to move as quickly as you do, but it would still be a problem, I agree. I have to lean a little further forward when I walk with my quills extended. A giant tail would kill your balance if you tried to lift it off the ground, and if you're not lifting it off the ground it means you're dragging a huge tail everywhere. You'd probably get really sore. Lady Vesuvius hums thoughtfully. Speaking of, how have your back and shoulders been doing? The stretches you suggested help, thank you, I nod. Vibrating my quills every day to get heat flowing through them has also been doing wonders. That's wonderful to hear, she responds, almost absent-mindedly. So you think the main problem would be dragging the tail everywhere? If it weighs too much, you won't be able to lift it without falling backwards, I shrug. Right? Yes, you're absolutely right, Lady Vesuvius agrees. Perhaps rather than enabling the tail to be lifted, it might be easier to design it with the intention of being dragged. Well, I wouldn't know anything about that, I answer, shrugging. Honestly, I've been working very hard trying to hold on to what little humanity I have. I don't have any idea why you'd want to get rid of it. Well, you're not very content with who and what you are, yes? Lady Vesuvius asks me. Does it not stand to reason, then, that some humans may feel the same way? I nod slowly. I guess that makes sense. It feels weird to me that any human would want to be a monstrous freak of nature, but it sounds silly to say so when I'm talking to a woman literally turning herself into one. It would be nice if people could just swap bodies, or something. I'd be happy to give up mine. Penelope lets out a full-bodied laugh. Ah, yes, she agrees. If only we knew someone who could do that. Tope continued. Thanks for listening.